Welcome, everybody, to another edition of the Inside View. I am your host, Teddy Panos, coming to you here from the InsideLowell studios in beautiful downtown Lowell. I'm not sure when you're watching it, but the day we're recording it is Monday morning, March 6th. Beautiful day out there in the Merrimack Valley. And we've got an interesting guest joining us this morning with lots of good information for residents of Lowell and Greater Lowell, and hey, for the entire Commonwealth of Massachusetts for that matter. I'm going to bring him in a quick second. I want to start, as we always do, by thanking our sponsors for making today's podcast, all of our podcasts here at Inside Lowell and all of InsideLowell.com possible. We start with our friends at Washington Savings Bank. I've got my Washington Savings Bank mug, which I got for opening an account with them, but they have a better offer that you still have some time to take advantage of. Time is running out. You have till the end of this month, the end of March, to open an account with Washington Savings Bank. And if you can get $1,000 in qualified direct deposits into that account within 30 days, that could be your paychecks, could be your Social Security check, other qualified direct deposits. Get $1,000 in there, they give you $300. It's an amazing offer. It's for Lowell and Drake residents only. That's where the Washington Savings Bank offices are located, in Lowell and in Drake. Take advantage of it. You have to the end of March to sign up, and then you got 30 days to get that money deposited. Learn more by going online to WashingtonSavings.com. Also want to thank the two sponsors you see over my shoulder there, Hafner's. It kicks, they kick. Don't take any chances with your family or your home. Hafner's takes the worry off your mind with their comprehensive home heating services, whether you use propane or heating oil in your home. They will offer quick, reliable, friendly service, and they also offer great options like auto pay and auto delivery to make your life easier. Plus, there are Hafner's gas stations, convenience stores, and car washes throughout the Merrimack Valley and southern New Hampshire. Call 866-IT-KICKS to learn more. That's 866-IT-KICKS, or visit Hafners.com. And last but certainly not least, our friends at Reverie 73, a local cannabis dispensary. It's a new industry, right? Cannabis dispensaries. It's a new product for many people. Reverie 73 takes a lot of the questions away from you. They're friendly, knowledgeable staff, always ready to spend that extra time with you to answer any questions you may have. And their store itself stands out. It's beautiful, it's bright, it's welcoming. So whether you're new to the world of cannabis or a canna connoisseur, the team at Reverie 73 is sure to elevate your cannabis experience. Visit them 1148 Bridge Street in Lowell, or order online at reverie73.com. And with that, I turn to our guest this morning. He is the state senator representing the Mill City of Lowell, as well as a few other communities that have changed, mind you, since you first took the oath of office. Senator Ed Kennedy, good morning, Senator, and welcome.
Good morning, Ted. I'm happy to be here. And it is a stellar day out there, isn't it?
It is.
Makes you wish it was skiing.
Yeah, we're getting, I'd rather be at the lodge and let somebody else ski,
Okay.
But yeah, it is a beautiful day out there today. We can see spring almost just ahead, right? We can almost taste it.
Right.
So,
Yeah, it's just a few weeks away, right?
yeah. So how have you been? This is our first chat since I started this venture back in October.
I've been good. I'm just starting my third term, and we've got our committee assignments, and we have been, the delegation has changed a little bit. So, I've been talking to members in the delegation, and, representing part of my district. We've got State Representative Rodney Elliott, and also State Representative Margaret Scarsdale, who represents Dunstable and Pepperell, which is part of my district. So we've got two new people, and we've got, and then Colleen Gary, who would be probably the longest serving state rep in the district.
Yeah, your district changed with the addition of Drake, and then you lost, Groton? And
I lost Groton and Westford.
Okay.
My district, as it was sufficient. In other words, I had the right number of people, but the districts out in the western part of the state they needed more communities. So they took Westford and Groton away from me and gave me Drake instead. So, which is fine. I know a lot of people in Drake and so forth. So I'm happy with Drake, but at the same time, I'm sorry to lose Groton and Westford. I'd put a lot of time in out there in both those communities, and so it made a lot of new friends that, keep the friends, but but you lose the vote.
Sure. Yeah. To me, it sounds like a more sensible district because Drake, it basically is Lowell across the Merrimack River, and some of those other communities were a little stretched out. That said, you've got some strange politics in there. Drake, arguably your most conservative district now, right? So it's a little different than representing the folks in Westford and elsewhere.
It is a little bit different, but I remember being out on election day out in Drake. I spent most of the day out there at a poll, just standing with my sign. Even though I was unopposed, I just thought it was a good idea to do that. And I ended up talking to someone who had known since I was a teenager, and hadn't seen him for a long time. And we were talking for hours. And it wasn't until later on that I realized that he was holding this big sign that said, "Had enough, vote Republican."
Yeah, they were a little more conservative out there in my former stomping grounds. You mentioned committee assignments. You've gotten some new ones, including a chairmanship. You are now the chair of the Joint Committee on Bonding, Capital Expenditures, and State Assets. Congratulations on chairing that committee. You did used to chair tourism, correct?
Arts, and Cultural Development. Yeah. So I've given up that chairmanship. I still will be on that committee, but not as the chair. But I will be doing bonding, and then I'm also the vice chair for municipalities and regional government, and then I have 5 other committees that I also serve on.
So I noticed your committee assignments, and we listed them on InsideLowell, the entire delegation, the state reps, and yours as well in the Senate. And it didn't hit me at first, but for some strange reason, I made the connection this morning. Chairing a committee that's in charge of capital expenditures and state assets. That means every state-owned building.
Yes.
Correct? Which is interesting here in Lowell because we have a couple of state-owned buildings that were basically evacuated when the new courthouse opened. They cleared out all the other courthouses, combined them into one. So these courthouses are now sitting there. And as I understand the process, the state first tries to determine if there's a use for them to have it.
Right.
If not, they then offer the option to the city of Lowell. Would the city of Lowell like to use them for something?
Right.
And then if Lowell can't make it work or has no use for them, then it goes out to some kind of private bid. Where are we with these courthouses today?
Excuse me. I think we're still near the starting line. I don't think we've really done much with it. And part of that, I think, probably is because of the changing over of administrations. I don't think that it was a high priority to do anything with those buildings. But I do think that the city of Lowell, at least in discussions that I've been part of, there is some interest in doing something with the Heard Street Courthouse, the Lowell District Courthouse, which has, there's a lot of parking behind there. There's parking for about 80 to 100 cars just in the district court parking lot. And that building is not historical. And it probably wouldn't lend itself to a lot of other reuses. And so chances are that whatever the future for that building is probably to demolish it and build something else. And I think that for a while there was some discussion about putting the police station there. But I'm not so sure, given the traffic pattern right there, that's going to work. But that's not for me to decide anymore, right? So we'll see what happens with that. But there's that. Then there's the Superior Courthouse, and then 89 Appleton Street too. So
the ability to demolish that and then have something new, that opens it up to an awful lot of possibilities.
Yes, that opens it right up, and it's right in this, right in the heart of the Central Business District. The Superior Courthouse up on Gorham Street is a little bit different because the back part of that building, the part that's brick that you don't really see from Gorham Street, but you do see it from this side street, that's historical. So that would be a little bit different. And I'm not sure about 89 Appleton Street or whether that is. By the way, as long as we're talking about courthouses, on June 2nd, we'll be dedicating the new courthouse to Judge Cornelius Cannon. So that will be, that's going to be. I'm pretty excited about that. I think he's certainly deserving of an honor like that. I don't know if you're familiar with Judge Cannon, but besides being a judge, he was a state rep for a long, long time. And I think before that, he was even a member of the Lowell School Committee for maybe 1 or 2 terms. But so anyways, we'll be doing that on June 2.
All right. Always a Lowell connection, isn't there?
Yes, there is.
You mentioned Governor Healy. She's come out with her first budget. Your thoughts on it?
Well, she's come out with her first budget. The House, you're talking about House 1. She's got, I'm sorry, there's a supplemental that we'll be voting on this Thursday. There's probably another supplemental that the governor will be unveiling, I think maybe by the end of this week. And then, but House 1 is, what happens with I think probably the best way to describe the governor's budget when it first comes out is it's the governor's recommendations of how the money is spent. But as you know, then what happens is the House comes out with its version, the Senate comes out with its version, and then there's a conference committee, which often spills into the new fiscal year by several days or even weeks, that will work out the difference between the House and the Senate version, and the governor's version is really sort of put aside. However, I think that there's, I'm pretty excited about the Healy administration and how it's going to be going forward. So
There seemed to be a lot of prioritization given to education. The free community college plan, which was discussed, also I think giving more money to school districts as well. Lowell would benefit. Was about 20 million more? Or what's that the number?
Low benefits. I mean, we had the Student Opportunity Act just a couple of years ago, so that was an influx. But the gateway cities like Lowell benefited from that quite a bit. The towns in my district did not really benefit all that much. So they need something. And what I hear from the towns really is what they need, or one of the things that they would like to see improved is the amount of money that's provided for school transportation for the school buses, which is supposed to be at 75%. But, there'll be a move this year, I think, to try to move that up to 90%, which I think is certainly warranted and is the way that it should be. So, we'll see what happens with that. But overall, I think that I'm pretty excited about the Healy administration, at least right off the bat.
Yeah, she should. The first budget shouldn't be that difficult, and she should. I'm going to guess, new governor, they tend to get a little bit of a honeymoon, and she's also the governor from the party that dominates the House and the Senate up there on Beacon Hill. So I wouldn't imagine too much opposition in terms of her college plan with community college. It was free community college for those 25 and above. Why not start younger? Is that simply a dollars and cents thing? She doesn't imagine there's enough money there right now to go younger than that, or
to go younger than
25. For I believe her plan calls for free community college for anyone 25 and above. Is that? Did I read that correctly?
I didn't realize that it was like that. I really thought it was just about for anybody that was going to community college. But I do, there's 17 other states that provide, free tuition for their community colleges. I think it's good that we do it in Massachusetts. And actually, for a lot of people, I think that's an attractive alternative for people that live in Lowell, because it's a more economical way to get a bachelor's degree, right? Then, if you do 2 years, and we have students now that are graduating from Lowell High School and getting an associate's degree concurrently at the same time, and it's that's amazing. So with that, you've got just 2 years left after high school to get a bachelor's degree, and that gives you 2 more years in the workforce. So that's it increases your lifetime income too.
There are some, and I count myself among them, that I think it's not a bad idea. What I would like to see is it targeted the free college, and even if you have to advance it into a full 4-year bachelor's degree, to the fields where we have a definite need here in the country, the STEM fields. For example, no disrespect to anybody who wants to be a psychology major. I've got family members who are or want to be
history major,
broadcasting majors. Great. If you want to pursue that on your own, knock yourself out, like I was foolish enough to do. But where we have a definite need for the STEM fields, if we created that both at the community college and then ultimately even at the UMass and other state systems, I think that could greatly benefit our economy long term. And I think it'd be an easier sell, I think, to the public, don't you?
Yeah, I do. That's something to, I'll give that sounds like a good idea. I might bring that. You don't mind me stealing that, but
do not mention me. It'll be dead on arrival.
Well, I've never been shy about stealing good ideas. You know what I mean? So it's, maybe I'll put that in as an amendment to the budget, depending on how it is.
Yeah, I mean, you hear that there's so many fields in engineering and science, and even in medicine, we're having to go overseas to get specialists. And I'm like, well, if we could train, some of these folks here who are having a hard time finding work, no disrespect to folks in the restaurant industry, Lord knows I grew up in it, but
right.
we need them, but we need scientists more.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That's really a great idea. A couple of weeks ago, I was able to be at the University of Lowell to the Nerve Center. They had their 10th anniversary, and that was, some of the things that I do are just a lot of fun. And that was a fun thing because they had these robots and so forth. And it was really amazing to see something like that, right in Lowell, and that they're building stuff like that in Lowell is something else. But that goes along with the whole STEM. The STEM culture, which is what I originally had thought would happen with the Hamilton Canal Innovation District, and I'm still hopeful that we can have some of that in that area, but we'll see.
Yeah, don't give up hope on that Hamilton Canal District.
No.
That your idea about making an innovation center, an industrial park, needs to happen. We're chatting with State Senator Ed Kennedy. We're going to return to our discussion, talk about his priorities in this term. He filed 45 bills, including a couple that he had filed previous term, that I think are very important. Want to once again thank our sponsors for making the InsideView podcast and for making Inside Lowell possible. Our friends at Washington Savings Bank. Go to washingtonsavings.com to learn more about all their personal and commercial banking services, unparalleled here in Lowell, in the greater Lowell area and the Merrimack Valley. Plus, an opportunity for you to get a 300% return on your money. You get $1,000 put into a new account, open up a new account, get $1,000 directly deposited in there within 30 days. Paychecks, Social Security checks, any other qualified direct deposit, they're giving you $300, 30% return on your money. Easy math. Great offer, easy money. WashingtonSavings.com to learn more. Also want to thank our friends at Reverie 73. They have a beautiful location in Lowell, 1148 Bridge Street. They're opening 2 more this year, one in Gloucester, one in Beverly. The mission statement at Reverie 73 is to listen, explain, inspire, and delight. They're focused on customer education and the customer experience. So whether you're new to the world of cannabis or a canna connoisseur, the team at Reverie 73 is sure to elevate that cannabis experience. And last but certainly not least, thank you to our friends at Hafner's. Had a snowstorm over the weekend. I know I need to get my car washed. That's why I'm part of the Hafner's car wash plan. Easy. They can tailor it to your vehicle, your needs. Monthly fees, save a ton of money. And best thing is your car looks great. And it's going to have a longer life, less damage, less rust on your vehicle. Learn more by calling 866-IT-KICKS or visit hafners.com. And with that, we return with Senator Ed Kennedy. All right, 45 bills that you filed. That's a lot of writing for your staff.
It's a lot, but it really isn't. It's a lot. A lot of them are refiles from the previous session. And, there were some legislators that file over 100. Which I think is, difficult to manage. And then there are some that just file very, very few. So, but 45 is manageable. I think we'll be okay with that. And hopefully we'll get some of them across the finish line this time.
Yeah, the one that those here in Lowell are paying particular attention to is the one to give more money through the MSBA for COVID projects, for school building projects that COVID blew through the roof in terms of the costs. You were mentioning there's multiple schools affected in your district and the area. It's not just the Lowell High project that we're aware of, right?
No, it isn't. The Lowell High project is the most at $38 million, but Tingsboro, Groton, they're in the same boat. So is Somerville. Somerville built a $250 million high school. They got hit with about $30 million in overruns, and what they did was they just went out and bonded for that $30 million. Stoneham, I think, was $19 million. And there's probably a few that I don't know about yet, but and so we filed the legislation at $150 million. To be honest, I don't know if $150 million is enough or whether it's too much. But what I'm hoping with this legislation, I mean, it will have a hearing, and so there'll be a serious discussion on what, if anything, we can do about making up those shortfalls, which were caused by no fault of the individual communities. It's just the way the economy went. And so, we'll see what happens with that. But I'm pretty hopeful about that. And I do expect that those communities, other communities that have had the shortfall, that they will join with me and add to the support for that legislation.
Yeah, I can't imagine that would face any opposition. It seems kind of commonsensical, and it's funny because when the news first broke of the overrun at Lowell for the high school project, I thought to myself, well, let's look around, and it must be hitting everybody else. It can't be just Lowell. And at the time, ironically, I remember in my radio career interviewing Tingsboro manager Matt Hansen and their school superintendent. They're like, oh no, we're good. We think we're good. And I'm like, can't possibly be. And sure enough, it's not. Yeah, they now have a shortfall, but it's everybody else. The MSBA has to do something to address that, and whether it's to come up with new money or pause the program for a year or two and not accept any new schools into it. But they owe it to these communities that have already started the process. There's no going back now at Lowell High or Somerville or Tingsboro for that matter.
No.
The MSBA owes them this.
That's right. But I had discussions with the MSBA and so have others, and they really were not, they didn't see it as being their problem. So they weren't quick to come up with a solution. But I think that now there's been so many communities that have voiced their concern over this that they're starting to pay more attention to it. I did have a conversation with the chairman of Senate Ways and Means, and I do expect that we'll probably be doing something along these lines, or at least I'm very hopeful that we'll be doing that.
And the MSBA is headed by the state treasurer, Deb Goldberg,
That's
correct?
Right.
And is she on board with this, or does she have any hesitancy to your knowledge?
I don't know where she is. This is something that's somewhat unique. I mean, usually the MSBA will, they fund these school projects at a certain amount, and then that's it. I mean, we just got. They have really two tracks. They have the new school track, which is that's what we're doing for Lowell High, and then they also have a different track that provides money for repairs for schools. And we submitted, the city of Lowell submitted, I think 10 schools that were in need of repairs, and I think 4 of them were approved. And also, too, the MSBA this year has put a moratorium on that type of spending for the calendar year for 2023. So these are the reason that the 4 Lowell projects were approved is because they were spillover from last year, but there won't be any approved for this year until January, and then we'll take it up from there. But I think that the MSBA, I think, is starting to realize that they need to do something about these schools. The trick is going to be there's quite a few. So let's say that there's a dozen or 18 communities that are impacted that need the money. That's good, but the other communities that don't need that aren't building schools, they're not necessarily going to be. Think it's a great idea to spend money on those. You know what I mean? So it kind of ends up. So you're kind of working with that. That's the trick of the whole thing and getting it through. But we'll see how it goes.
They're all going to be in that boat eventually.
Yeah.
So kind of related to that, among the bills that you filed, is one that would create a similar authority or department as the MSBA, but one that would help communities with police stations, fire stations, and ultimately all municipal buildings. Tell us a little bit about that and what the prospects are for that of becoming reality.
Sure. The MSBA, the Massachusetts School Building Authority, gets its funding through the sales tax. So basically, 1 penny from every sales transaction that occurs in Massachusetts goes to the MSBA, and that's the money that they use. So I've filed legislation that would take an additional half a penny from the sales tax. So it would be no new taxes, but this would provide a similar building authority, but it would be actually I filed 2, Teddy. So one that I filed would be just for public safety buildings, which would be police and fire. And police and fire stations, by and large, cost in the vicinity of, say, $50 million. So they don't need a whole penny, right? Because schools are 200, 300 million. So half a penny, a quarter of a penny is probably going to be sufficient. So I filed that, and then I filed the same bill, but I had it include not just public safety buildings, but all municipal buildings. So it would also include libraries, senior centers, maintenance facilities, and the like. So the the public safety building has been endorsed this year by the Mass Municipal Association. So that's great news. It's also been, it's also supported by the Gateway City Caucus at the State House. So that's good news too. But there's also a lot of communities, particularly in the western part of the state, that are small, that, $50 million, $60 million that's a lot of money. And they really probably many of them don't have the tax base to support that. So they would be all on board with having this. And, for some communities leaders that I've talked to about this legislation, I pointed out that, Groton, for instance, has they've got a large fire station. And I remember being out there for a Memorial Day celebration, or maybe it was Veterans Day, but the weather was not the best. And so they moved it inside. And what they did was they took the fire apparatus, the fire trucks, and just put them out. And then they had like an auditorium, right? The garage turned into an auditorium. They had 200 people in there. And so, if you can build it like that, and it's got a dual purpose. In other words, if you can use it not just to garage your fire equipment, but also to for different community meetings, I think that's a plus and another reason to go that way. But I do expect, and I'm hoping, that there's going to be a lot of support for this legislation from communities that don't that would be hard strapped to build one on their own.
Yeah, because a lot of these communities end up trying to go the Prop 2.5 override route to get it, and a lot of them, the voters say no.
Yes.
We're out on this. To be clear, you're not calling for any new taxes of this. You're saying this would come from the existing sales
the
tax,
existing
correct?
sales tax. It would, there's no need to raise the sales tax or anything. It would be just a matter of dedicating some of that money to that, to just building those buildings.
Another good selling point there for folks.
It is a good selling point, and I think this is a good time because we did just pass the Fair Share Amendment. So there is going to be an influx of money that could be, so there should not be a problem with dedicating a portion of that sales tax for these types of buildings.
And you also have, between the marijuana money from the cannabis money from the last couple of years, and now the gambling money that's starting to roll in pretty nicely there. You should have a lot of sources. Is one of the challenges, though, that a lot of that money is already earmarked? I know through the millionaires tax, I think some of it can be earmarked. Actually, no, I apologize. The cannabis taxes, right? There's a community service type tax there.
Right.
That would make sense that could easily be rolled into public safety buildings, right?
Yeah. But I guess what I'm saying is that the money that's from the sales tax that's currently dedicated to other things, you could just switch that dedication and then have it be that the public safety buildings are financed through the finance that way, and then anyways, it'll all work out. Yeah.
Of the other 45 bills, are there any other there that you're hopeful can get a passing this year or relatively soon?
Those are the big ones. I do have a bill in for mattress recycling. UTEC in Lowell does mattress recycling throughout the Merrimack Valley. And as you probably know, since November 1 of last year, mattresses are no longer allowed in landfills. Mm-hmm. So there needs to be, it's fine to say that, but then there needs to be an alternative for those mattresses, or else you're going to find them all sitting on the side of the road. Mm-hmm. And so this bill would do that, and would provide some funding and just a method for recycling mattresses, which if they're broken down, I had an opportunity last year to go down to Lawrence, where UTEC puts all their mattresses when they break them down, and you see they break down that there's a lot of metal, there's a lot of wood, and so forth that make up a mattress that can all be recycled, and I think that's the way we're going to have to go in the future. So that's one piece of legislation that I have that I'm also hopeful, and it received a favorable out of committee. It just didn't make it all the way. So.
All right. And lastly, before we let you go, let's talk a little bit about something you told me about right before I hit record, and that is Revolution 250. You're not planning an insurrection. You want to celebrate one that we all cheered, right?
Right. So last session, the Massachusetts State Legislature created a 40-member commission. And that 40-member commission is charged with planning for the 250th anniversary of the American Revolution. which actually the 250th anniversary of the Boston Tea Party will be this December. But really, in my mind, it probably starts in 2025 with the Battle of Lexington and Concord. And, some of us recall, some of us are too young to recall, Teddy, that President Ford came when they had the 200th. So for the 250th, I would expect that the President of the United States is probably going to come to Lexington and Concord, and then it will be a big deal. But there are other communities that are going to want to share in this celebration. One of the things that I've learned about is the Battle of Gloucester. I never knew there was a Battle of Gloucester, but there was, and so I'm sure that Gloucester is going to want to be involved in the celebration. So I was the co-chair of that commission while I was the chair of the tourism, but I'm not the chair of tourism anymore. So I am hoping to be able to stay on the 40-member commission, but that remains to be seen.
So I'm old enough to remember the Bicentennial train pulling into Lowell and going on a school field trip back in 1976.
Right.
I don't remember President Ford coming to Lexington and Concord in 1975, but it that was a big deal. The Bicentennial was a big deal, and 250 should be a big deal. It's funny, you don't hear a lot about it. I knew nothing about it. It completely escaped me that it's been 250 years,
right,
until you mentioned Revolution 250.
Right. And the 13 states, the original 13 states, I think are all planning celebrations, and they're all doing it a little bit differently. But in Massachusetts, we've recently had meetings with the Healy Administration. We've recognized that we really need them to be on board in order for a lot of for it to work out the way that we want it to work out. But I'm pretty pumped about that celebration. I think it's going to be great, and hopefully as many communities as possible will be able to participate.
We have to find a Lowell tie-in. I know Lowell didn't get incorporated as 1821 as
1826.
1826 as a town, and then a city we became in 1836, right? But we what were we, Chelmsford at the time?
Part of it was Chelmsford.
Yeah.
I know where I live, we used to be Tewksbury. And I think that, much of Centerville was Drake and so forth. And so we kind of, we just kind of spread out from there. Right?
All right, we got to find a tie-in, and we're going to steal it here,
right?
Lowell.
Yeah. But anyways, that should be a great celebration. It's something that everybody can look forward to, and it should be okay. I remember Patriots Day last year. I ended up going down to Concord, and I was having lunch on the porch at the Colonial Inn. And there were a bunch of guys that were all dressed up in patriotic gear. And so I got up off the porch and I went down and I said, "Hey, can I get my picture taken with you guys?" And so they said, "Sure, you can have a picture taken with you guys." And one of the guys hands me a musket to hold for the picture. So I felt like I blended right in.
I need to see that photo. We're going to get the gun lobby mad at you with that. Senator Kennedy, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today and keeping us filled in. We'll have to check in periodically.
Thank you very much for inviting me. This has been great. And best of luck with this going forward.
Thank you. Very much appreciated. And we want to thank all of you for joining us this morning as well, or maybe it's tomorrow morning you're watching this, or in the afternoon or at evening. It's news, it's information, and it's sometimes entertainment on your schedule, not ours. But as we like to say, InsideLowell.com. If Lowell is your home, this is your place. Till next time, stay safe out there, everybody.